Okay. I never had good shoes. Like
high school, I had.
You could have New Balance and that's it.
Yeah, in high school, I had like a pair of Air Forces to match every football jersey I had.
Okay.
But yeah, I just never had Jordans, and so now it's one of those where it's like, man, I never had these. I kind of just want to buy them just because.
Yeah, I started doing that recently.
Yeah.
Not a lot. Not all retros. 9 plus a pair that's still in the box that I'm still trying to resell. I want to raffle for the OVO Jordan 8s because I thought that I could flip them pretty quickly. I couldn't. Yeah, I've tried to sell them. I don't get my price, so they just sit in the box. They're hideous. They're super ugly. If I realized how ugly they were, I probably wouldn't have tried to win the raffle. Oh, I shouldn't have ate chili.
Oh, my second giant espresso of the day.
Yeah, shout out to DK there.
Yeah, it's like I someone messaged me and asked about it, but I don't know anything about coffee drinks, so I wouldn't know if I was drinking one. Like, I'm not a coffee snob, but it tastes good by my standards.
That'll work.
Haven't tried the cappuccino yet.
I almost responded to your tweet when you posted it with thanking FanDuel for a can of instant coffee. I guess my I shouldn't have eaten chili message just got to chat. I wish I could spit rhymes on this stuff before shows, but it would be a disaster. I bet people don't believe that it's actually Jordan playing a small flute in the background for that sound. They don't even know. People don't even know. Willie K says boats and hoes in chat. That would be fun. Trust me, I know how long 1 minute is. Hot mic is the best part of the show. I agree. We should just stop. And we are live. Welcome to NFL Live Before Lock, the show that goes live before Lock. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are here to break down Ravens Cowboys Tuesday Night Football edition. And honestly, I'm just happy that we get these one-off random showdown slates on days that don't normally have football. So if there's a silver lining for COVID, it's that we get Tuesday night football. Adam, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, especially because Showdown cash in particular has been my favorite format lately. So just give me more island games. So yeah, I'm right there with you. It's always fun. Always nice to get one extra day of sports, when you're kind of trying to get through mid-weekend and get back to the weekend.
Ace King in YouTube chat says, are we still enemies, Josh? My response, I guess you opened a new YouTube account. So congratulations on sneaking your way back in the door. I appreciate it. I don't know who you bought that wristband off of, but we'll allow that purchase for now. I'm excited to talk about this slate. Before everybody gets here, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when this and all of our other content goes live. We're going to talk about a giveaway that we have going on later today. We've got another show coming up immediately after this at 7:05, I guess, which I just realized I typed into my run sheet incorrectly, but that's fine. I'm sure Jordan Klein, the man behind the virtual glass, quarantining right now, will be able to figure it all out.
Don't worry, nobody's looked at your run sheet.
I forgot who I was doing the show with. Perfect. Well, let's just transition right into top captain options, top MVP options. And as I do that, I'm going to hit you with two player props from our sponsor, No House Advantage. You should go to No House Advantage right now. They've got a 2K guaranteed 1K up top contest getting ready to go off at 8:05 for this game. And it's only 45% filled. So you can get yourself a little bit of overlay if you get in right now. It's not looking like it's going to fill. But here are the two props. These are listed at No House Advantage if you want to check them out. First one. Well, it's going to be three props. Two players, three props. Lamar Jackson, 213.5 passing yards.
Right where I think it should be. I have it at like 215.
Okay. 53.5 rushing yards.
48.
Okay.
So I don't know. I guess I wouldn't take either one, but if I had to take a side, I guess I would take the under just because there's at least some uncertainty about what kind of shape he's in and how his health in general is.
Do you think this is an interesting strategy question. Do you think that because of this particular format, it's easier to be pessimistic for Lamar Jackson, but in sort of a fantasy style GPP, is it a little bit different to go heavier because of that variance? Or is it the same kind of variance?
I think it's kind of the same. I mean, when you're talking like normal DFS tournaments, a lot would come down to the ownership there. Because I mean, like it's the uncertainty is at least somewhat going to be baked into Vegas lines. We know that prop betting or prop lines in general aren't the most efficient, but baked in to some extent there. But in DFS tournaments, you also have the ownership you can look at where if the field is saying like, I don't care that this guy just had COVID, that this running quarterback just had COVID, maybe I'll care. But if the field doesn't, or if the field does care, then I would gladly just say, yeah, I don't know. It's Lamar Jackson. He's probably fine. So yeah, I think it's kind of just in uncertain spots like that, it's best just to kind of do the opposite of what everyone else is doing.
That makes sense. Final prop, we're sticking at quarterback. Andy Dalton, 260 passing yards.
Sorry, I was muted because my dogs were barking. Andy Dalton, 260 passing yards. I would take the under here. Just, a solid Baltimore defense. Not that I think Dalton's any bad, but you could definitely just see kind of a shorter passing game and potentially a little bit faster game as well with how much Baltimore looks to run.
All right, so I'm going to take a look at our current projections. I'm looking at DraftKings right now, but you guys know the drill. FanDuel just slightly different. Lamar Jackson, the highest projected player on this slate, 24.38 fantasy points. I don't get the sense that that's going to be all that surprising to anyone. He kind of needs to be the highest projected guy on this slate. But Andy Dalton isn't second. And you don't see a ton of people normally at the top over both quarterbacks. But Ezekiel Elliott and Marquise Brown, both projected for more than Andy Dalton. How do you feel about that Lamar Jackson projection? And are you interested in Andy Dalton, even though he has a slightly lower projection at quarterback?
So definitely agree with the Jackson projection. I think that this game's interesting because it's two teams where, kind of with the exception of the quarterbacks and Jackson in particular, you kind of have no idea where production's coming from. These games are always difficult from a showdown standpoint. And, you have guys getting healthier again for Baltimore. So the running backs are going to most likely be splitting carries. On Dallas, you have the receivers that are more or less interchangeable from a fantasy standpoint. You never really know who's going to get the most targets. So it kind of just drives the median projection down for essentially everybody. except for Lamar Jackson, who you know is going to get some rushing yards and you know he's going to play quarterback. So it makes sense that Jackson pretty clearly is the top projected guy here. You also have to factor in that, Dallas is going up against a solid Baltimore defense. Ezekiel Elliott has been basically garbage this year, and Dallas's offensive line is hurt. So it's not like he's getting as high a projection as he would maybe in previous seasons or in a better matchup. So I think it makes a lot of sense for everyone to be, pretty far behind Lamar. As far as Dalton goes, I think it's fine. Like, I don't know that I agree with or feel great about Marquise Brown being ahead of Dalton. He's certainly someone who has his own issues playing with Baltimore in a run first passing offense that has Lamar Jackson throwing the ball. But, it is a favorable spot. He's going up against a weak Dallas defense. So I think it's not a stance that I would take a hard line on either way. But I think at least from a floor standpoint, you get a higher floor with the quarterback.
Speaking of that higher floor on the quarterback, you're probably going to need Lamar Jackson in a bunch of lineups, but if he doesn't succeed, that could be interesting. He is very clearly the highest owned guy on DraftKings. In the aggregate, 78%, 25% at the captain, north of 50 at the utility. Does any part of that stand out to you? In my opinion, I think it should be higher at captain, less at utility, but I'm anxious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I think that because of how he gets it done, also like all the rushing equity he brings, it's not like for Jackson to have a big game, Marquise Brown has to have a big game, or any of the receivers have to have a big game. You can pretty easily have him spread the ball around, all the receivers on that team be sort of mediocre, and Jackson just win it with his legs. So I think that using him at captain, you can do it in a variety of ways. Like, I don't think you even have to stack him with anyone necessarily, but he just projects so much higher that I think he should be higher owned than the captain, like you said.
So here's the question: aggregate ownership of 78%, is that too high given his uncertainty for today?
I don't really think so, just because of the other options on the slate. It would be different if this were, let's say they were playing the Chiefs or something, and you have Tyreek Hill that is going to be in line for a big game, or Travis Kelce or Mahomes, but you don't have that here. The opposing quarterback isn't an exciting option in Dalton. None of the pieces on Dallas, not to say that none of them are going to have a big game, but you just don't look at any of them and say, like, it would be surprising if Amari Cooper does poorly, or it would be shocking if Zeke does poorly. It's really easy to see how any of these guys have kind of mediocre outcomes. Not to say that Jackson is like a lock to do well, but he just, it seems like he has as high a ceiling as anyone on the slate, a higher floor than everyone on the slate, and a higher median projection than everyone on the slate. So I understand if you're playing like Millie Maker type tournaments, raw ownership, just avoiding raw ownership carries some merit because of the number of entries in the field. But when you're thinking about chances of success versus ownership, it's just really tough for me to think that there's 6 guys that I want instead of Lamar, even at that ownership.
So outside of Lamar, who else stands out to you at the captain spot?
Zeke, I think, just because if you're getting that much ownership going to Lamar, you're going to see Zeke's ownership relatively low. He projects to have a higher top stat or a higher top score percentage on DraftKings than his ownership. He has been bad this year. As I mentioned before, there's offensive line issues there. It's not a good matchup. You have all of those things, but he's still going to get opportunities. And, I think that if you're taking Jackson out of the equation, Zeke would be one of the guys that you're looking to next to say, like, okay, maybe, he at least has the ceiling to be the guy that you want in that spot.
Yeah, both of those guys are soaking up just about all of my captain ownership today, with Lamar getting the large majority of it. I did get to 1 or 2 shares of Amari Cooper. Anybody else other than Zeke? Are there any, down the line guys that stand out to you as potential flyers in like a more large field contest?
Devin Duvernay, only $800 on DraftKings. Don't really know why he's that cheap, but he for one, he has big playability. Like, it's unlikely that he puts up a monster score, but he's projected for no captain ownership right now with a 3% chance of being the top scorer. But he also just opens it up so that you can do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup. You can get all the best plays in there, basically. So he was someone that I thought maybe would be coming in a little bit over-owned because of that. But given his projected ownership right now, I think that's a route that you can go.
That's an interesting one. I'm certainly very fond of him in the utility spot, which we will touch on shortly. But first, let's touch a little bit on the MVP side. So we'll slide on over to FanDuel for all the FanDuel peeps. And as I look at the FanDuel projections, from a projection standpoint, this is all going to be largely the same. Although Marquise Brown is behind Andy Dalton on FanDuel, the half-point PPR is going to play a little bit of a role there. That's how you can get Dalton to come up a little bit further. Anything stand out to you from the FanDuel projections, or is it just same sort of opinion set as the DK side?
Pretty much the same opinion set. I think it's worth noting, and we saw this on DraftKings too, but Andy Dalton, captain ownership, a lot higher than his top scorer percentage. I think that makes sense because you tend to see people go to quarterbacks quite a bit in the captain spot. Dalton's not giving you a ton of rushing equity, and there's a pretty good chance that, if he does have a good game passing, that one of his receivers has a really big game. So I think that I would prefer going that route given the ownership than going to Dalton there. But, outside of that, kind of the same, or pretty much the same thing as DraftKings. The exception being, I'm not looking to Devin Duvernay because the salary thing doesn't apply.
Yeah, and as I look at our ownership projections for the FanDuel side, where Lamar is right now, I would like to get higher than that number. You and I have talked about it quite a bit in the past couple shows that we've done. I think he's a little over-owned in the utility spot, given the makeup of the way that this works. And I would just rather have more shares of Lamar at MVP, where I think he could have a bigger role than try to thread that needle at 16,500. Do you have any MVPs on the FanDuel side that stand out to you?
I'm with you on Lamar,
I guess.
Yeah, I'm with you on Lamar. Other than that, Zeke again looks a little bit under-owned. Kind of going down the list, there's nothing that really stands out because again, you don't get that salary savings on FanDuel if you go to a lower scoring MVP. So it's a little bit less appealing.
If you're looking for any free content today, guys, you are in luck. NFL Showdown rankings are free. So you won't get the direct projection number, but you will get Alex's points ranking and value ranking, so you can get an idea of where everybody shakes out for this slate. Those are free today. I'm sure you'll see them in our YouTube chat. Producer, the man behind the virtual glass, Jordan Klein, has got them pulled up on the screen right now. But that is not the only good thing that we have going today. We do have a bit of a giveaway. I was going to mention it later, but I think it's probably better off that we mention it now. Go to our Twitter account, Awesemo_com. Check out the pinned tweet. This one's going to be easy. I think it's always easy. All you have to do, respond to the tweet. It's a question. Will Lamar Jackson or Andy Dalton have more passing yards today? If you respond to that tweet with your answer and you get it right, you got to be following Awesemo_com. You have to be following at Awesemo NFL, and you have to like that tweet. If your reply is in before kickoff, you're set. Random winner will win $250. You cannot beat it. And you can win an Awesemo yearly pass. Wait, hold on. I'm reading this wrong. Win an Awesemo yearly pass tonight. The pass has a value of $250. We are not, I don't believe we are giving away $250. That is confusing to me. My apologies. Read the graphic, not the tweet. Don't listen to me. I'm a moron, but we are doing a bit of a giveaway. So go check that out. We'll talk about that one later. Let's talk a little bit about the utility side of this game. I think we should start. Let's just start on that MVP side. Let's just touch on it quickly. Does Lamar Jackson fit the same mold that we have had in the past, that he's probably over-owned at utility?
Talking on FanDuel?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so it's not, and I know what you mean, but like, it's not that he's over-owned at utility, as in like he should be in less overall lineups. It's just that he should be being played a captain more.
Yes. Yeah. I think that he should be owned a lot, but if he's 38% in MVP and 57 in utility, I would rather like flip-flop those numbers than play it to that side, because I really do think that it's difficult to get to him in the utility spot at that salary point. Are there any other guys at utility that are standing out to you on FanDuel? It's a much different setup, because on DraftKings, we've got Des Bryant at $1,000. We've got Duvernay at $800. It's a different salary tier on FanDuel, where the lowest salary guys are not so dramatically different than the highest salary guys. So talk to me about what you like at flex today on FanDuel.
It looks like Dalton's projected to be really under-owned. Mentioned him being over-owned at captain, 5% top stack or top score percentage, 12% captain ownership. But then when you look at his chances of coming in the 2 through 5 spots on FanDuel, 62% compared to only 38% ownership. So looks like he's going under-owned. Looks like Zeke's going under-owned. Again, you don't it's a little bit more difficult to get to those guys because you don't have the $800 Duvernay to use. Like you said, you don't have an $1,800 Luke Wilson or whatever his price point is on DraftKings. But those guys, if you can get them in there, are projected to be a little bit under-owned. Looking down, trying to kind of find some cheaper guys that may be going overlooked. Still, Duvernay at 7K, you're getting 9% ownership with a 29% chance of being in the 2 through 5 spots. It's not. He's not quite as appealing on FanDuel, not only because he's not $800, but also because it's half point PPR. And part of the reason Duvernay has so much value on DraftKings is it's full point PPR. If they just get him the ball in space a few times and he catches 3 or 4 passes, you've got a pretty serviceable score for his $800 salary. So FanDuel, you kind of need that like Isaiah McKenzie game that you got last night where one of his 2 or 3 touches ends in the end zone, but he's still cheap enough and still, will most likely get a few opportunities. So with the ownership where it is, I think that's someone you can use in larger field stuff.
Do you prefer Duvernay to Bryant on FanDuel? Got to sneeze.
Yeah, just because of the ownership. I think that if the ownership were flipped, I'd prefer Bryant. I don't really have a strong lean either way. You saw Bryant get 5 targets in his first game. You saw him get, I think 2 targets last game. There's at least there's kind of that like underlying uncertainty. Like, is this the game, and or will there be a game where Bryant like breaks out, or is he just kind of out there because they don't have bodies? So he's going to get opportunities here, but the ownership is higher on him than Duvernay. And I think that realistically their range of outcomes is about the same.
Revenge narrative?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, just making sure. Some of the guys that I like at the flex on FanDuel: Dalton, Dobbins, Lamb, Brown. Pick a kicker if you'd like, and then I'm happy to pay down for Duvernay and Dez Bryant. Let's slide on over to the utility spot on DK. We've got, I lost my ownership there for a second. God, that sneeze really threw me, man. That was aggressively powerful. It came out of nowhere too. How are you feeling about the Lamar Jackson ownership at utility? North of 50% right now. I think it's just the same story. Now it's a different mechanism on DraftKings because you do get that 1.5x to salary and projections. So it's different on DK, but I still prefer him in the captain spot than I do at the utility. I would rather take some of that utility exposure and slide it to the captain spot.
Yeah, right there with you. I agree.
Okay, perfect. Let's talk about the other 3 guys that are projected north of 30%. And we're basically just talking about the highest projected guys from Awesemo. 36.5 on Zeke, 30 and change on Dalton, 30 and change on Marquise Brown. Anybody stand out to you as over-owned from that group of 3?
Maybe Marquise Brown. I mean, I think it's a favorable price point. The thing is just, you still just deal with that inconsistency from the Baltimore offense. Last week, obviously he had a big game, but it was kind of like that Henry Ruggs game where he was doing absolutely nothing. And then he just like housed a 75-yard touchdown late in the fourth quarter. So you still have that inconsistency, the relatively low floor for a number 1 wide receiver because he is big play dependent. There's no doubt that he can have a monster game, but if half the field's going to roster him at captain, at flex and another 10% at captain, there's half the field that, if you just get a bad Marquise Brown game isn't doing well. So maybe a little bit over-owned on Brown. Dalton on DraftKings looks a little bit over-owned as well. So, I think kind of looking to the Cowboys receivers and trying to get them right. Like you have Dalton Schultz at tight end coming in under-owned. I think you have Michael Gallup at 4,400 coming in under-owned. I think maybe kind of going to those guys as opposed to Brown can give you an advantage in tournaments.
Where do you land on the kickers tonight?
They're both cheap enough that they're fine. This is certainly the type of game where I think you could see field goals. I would lean toward Tucker just because I think the Ravens score more points than the Cowboys do, but I think that they're both perfectly fine plays. You also see in Alex's Sims, you see the same thing. 27% chance of being in the optimal for Justin Tucker, 17.8% for Zerline.
And then let's work our way all the way down. I think that Dez Bryant and Duvernay are like the 2 real options to pay down for, but Miles Boykin also picking up a little bit of ownership. How do you feel about the ownership on Bryant and Duvernay?
So I still, I prefer Duvernay because of the salary. He's $200 cheaper than Bryant. But I just think that there's a better chance Duvernay does, has a good game. Like he's been involved in the offense all season long, whereas this is Bryant's third week. If the ownership were to change and Bryant comes down, then I'd start to become interested. They're both guys that if I'm playing a bunch of tournament lineups, I'd be using them both because the range of outcomes is similar for them. I just slightly prefer Duvernay. As far as Boykin goes, kind of interesting because he didn't get anything last week. There's no guarantee that that's the case again, but it seems like he's just kind of been replaced by Bryant. And then you have Duvernay stepping up into the Willie Snead role. Pulling up snap counts now, Boykin last week played 18 snaps, which, I mean, it's pretty in line with what he normally does. Prior to that, he was at 15, 19, 23. So it's not like Boykin was just like completely taken off the field. So with him getting 6% ownership in tournaments, I think that is someone that I would want some exposure to if I'm playing 150 lineups. But if I'm trying to rank the secondary Baltimore receivers, I would say Duvernay, Bryant, and then Boykin.
Okay, good to know. 1,100 people, only 139 likes, mostly because I've only asked once. So now seems like the perfect time for you guys to hit that like button. Let's push that number up. I want to go north of 300, make that really easy. But subscribe to the channel. We're still making that push for 50K. We've got NBA preseason content coming out soon. The real NBA season is fast approaching, which I cannot wait for. We're hoping to get the big push there, but 50K is in our sights. So thank you guys for being the 40,000 plus that have already subscribed. Look, asking you shall receive. Likes are already north of 200. You're close, but you got to keep it going. Is there anything that we haven't touched on, whether it's the DraftKings side or the FanDuel side, things that stand out to you that you want to make sure you mention, whether that's guys that you really like more than the field, or is there anybody specifically that you think is dramatically overowned that you are avoiding?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much covered it when we went through everything. Duvernay at captain, I guess, is one that I would, sort of reiterate if ownership stays how it is. Mentioned, Gallup at flex being, I think, pretty underowned as people are going to look to go to Cooper and go to CD Lamb, which is, perfectly fine. But Gallup, not a drastically different range of outcomes at a lower price tag. But, I think touched on all those guys as we went through.
Perfect. We've got about 8 minutes until we turn this one over to the boss man, Alex Baker and EMac. They will take you all the way up until lock. So let's answer some questions. First one coming in from YouTube chat, Mike Murray. Ingram's, Dobbins. I think I said Ingram's plural because I knew what was coming next. Ingram, Dobbins, or both?
It's tough to trust either one just because you have Ingram back, but you are getting more ownership going to Dobbins and he is more expensive. So I would lean toward Ingram taking the shot there.
We're going to be on opposite sides here. I prefer Dobbins, but no part of me is comfortable grabbing random Ravens running backs. Yeah. Like that can go any direction as far as
mostly it would come down to like what's in the rest of my lineup. Like if it's a lineup where the savings to Ingram don't matter, I'm fine going to Dobbins. Like they're both projected, according to Alex's Sims, to be underowned in the flex spot. So I don't really mind either one. I just think that the 3K in savings is potentially useful.
That's fair.
Or sorry, Ingram projected to be overowned, Dobbins underowned.
Okay. I guess we didn't mention this one either. Any interest in the defenses?
Not really. I mean, the Ravens would be the one that I'm interested in, but I just don't really want to pay $5,800 for a defense. I mean, you just need so much to go right. Like you're basically just hoping for a pick six, basically, or the offenses in general to suck. But enough people play them that I just don't really think there's much of an advantage to having them. I would rather not have them and then hope that it's a normal game.
You and me both. Hollywood or Lamb if you're already leveraged elsewhere?
That's really close. I would go Hollywood just because I think the matchup's better. Yeah. And it's not like Lamb has a super high floor either since he's competing with targets. They're competing for targets.
I slight lean to Brown, but I think both guys are underowned, so I don't really have a problem grabbing either one of them. The rest of the lineup construction would matter a little bit, but to me, they're both positive plays. So at the very least, I don't have like a quick, no, not that guy.
Right.
Here's one. Tony Pollard in a single entry for leverage.
I don't hate it. Like the problem is just that the Cowboys are still likely to rely on Zeke, even if he's ineffective, which he has been pretty much all year. But it does the key point there, I think, is that it actually is leverage. It's not like the word leverage meaning under-owned. It's like if he has a big game, a popular Zeke most likely didn't. So
right.
it does help you. It's always just a powerful thing, especially on shorter slates, to have a guy that negatively correlates with a popular player, because not only is your lineup doing well if variance works in your favor, but a bunch of other lineups are doing poorly, kind of by definition.
This is coming from Premium Slack, which is what you guys should be in. You should sign up at awesemo.com/join, come into Premium Slack. This is from DJ. Do you have any rules as far as the Baltimore running backs go?
I wouldn't want
one
more
in
than
the
two.
flex. Okay, yeah. Same. I don't think that I would get 3 of them even if I crunched anyway. So it's not something that I'm setting, but it would be something that I would want to add a quick column for to see if I have all 3 of them.
Right. And I probably wouldn't want all 3 of Bryant, Boykin, and Duvernay either, but I don't think I would ever get that either. So.
Right. Yeah. That's something that I just tend to not set rules for if it doesn't appear that those guys can all show up. I can look at my sim results, see that, let's say that Mark Ingram in particular is dramatically over-owned in my opinion. And then I just know that he's not really going to show up in anything that ranks positively. So I don't have to worry about slightly slowing down Fantasy Cruncher for that. I try not to set too much at this point. Let's see. FanDuel GPP, large field, Schultz or Gallup? Last piece.
Which site?
FanDuel,
large field, Schultz or Gallup. They both, where'd Gallup?
I have them both with the exact same sim results.
Yeah, so Gallup right now we have projected for 20% ownership, 15 going to Schultz. Alex actually has Schultz with the higher optimal percentage. So I would go towards Schultz.
Yeah, I would lean towards Schultz there as well. I don't really like either of them all that much. So Schultz would be the lean. Gallup or Zerline? I'm guessing that's a FanDuel question because they're both 8,500.
They're not that far apart on DraftKings either. I prefer Gallup just because it's not like he's an irrelevant part of the passing game. He's going to get targets and he certainly can be the guy for a game. He's a talented enough receiver. So I would go to Gallup. I think the ceiling's higher.
Let's see what else we have. Probably 1 or 2 more questions before we turn this one over to the boss man and EMac. Let's see. Would you have both Brown and Duvernay on FanDuel in the flex spot?
Oh, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that.
I mean, depends how many more pass catching guys you have from the Ravens in that lineup. But
I wouldn't have Bryant and Boykin there too, but the Brown and Duvernay part isn't a problem.
Thank you for the super chat from Random DK Cash. Best down pays already got QBs and their top wide receiver. So Duvernay. Yeah, you're 100% Duvernay. I mean, I guess Des Bryant is another option, but I'd prefer Duvernay to Des Bryant in that scenario from a cash perspective.
Yep.
But both of those two would probably be the only two as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think I haven't settled on my cash lineup yet, but when I was kind of just going through and looking at options, as far as value goes, it was basically Duvernay and then the kickers, and Gallup wouldn't be the end of the world. Right.
Let's see. One more and then we're out of here and turning it over. So let's find it. No, there aren't any more. So that's it. You guys got to 260 likes. Final push. Can we push this north of 300 before Adam and I get out of here? It's time to go build some lineups and watch some football. And this will be the final live show that I do until Monday morning with you and Laffy, going on vacay for a bit. Keep your eyes peeled for UFC contenders Thursday morning and my NFL top 5s for Thursday morning as well. That's all I've got. Adam, any final thoughts?
No, that's it for me. Good luck, everyone.
Right, you?
No, it's Jordan.
Come on, Jordan. Rookie. Mute those people. Mute those. I'm kidding. I don't care at all. Thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate you being here. It's been a good time. Go everybody that I have in my lineups. I'm cheering wildly against everybody that I don't. Should be a fun time. Enjoy the boss man, Alex Baker. Enjoy EMac. We're out.
You're good,
Adam. I laughed.
All right, see you guys.
About it.
Good stuff, guys. So,
Greetings, Alex.
and this is great being on with my old pal again.
Two best looking analysts in the business.
Oh yeah, man. We got so many ladies tuning in for this.
Demographic. Desperate Housewives comes to mind.
Yep. Oh, me? EMac's the host, right?
Coming on me. Coming on me.
Yeah.
All right, Awesemo, here we are. Wait a second. All right, Awesemo. Awesemo's with me. It's your old pal EMac. We're doing NFL Live Before Lock, or as we like to call it, Live Before Lock after Live Before Lock. That's a lot of live. But we're doing good here. We've got NFL nonstop, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, and then we get 48 hours off till it comes in on Thursday. Friday, we have NBA preseason. There's some best ball draft NBA style content. I know Greg Ehrenberg has been in the lab cooking up some stuff that is on the website, and we got all sorts of goodness. Interesting games last night. That was a lot of fun watching those. We saw craziness yet again. The $1 million winner just threw caution to the wind and said, let's play 6 Buffalo Bills on DraftKings. So do we set rules tonight? I'm not sure. There are no rules anymore in 2020. But Alex, what was your biggest takeaway from last night? And can any of that be applied going forward?
Well, mad props to the Millie Maker winner there. He had a really interesting lineup. I do feel like the onslaught is viable, especially in 1-game slates, but in 2-game slates as well. And as you said, he has 6 Bills. The other thing I noticed, he left $6K of salary on the table out of $50K. Now, yesterday's salary cap wasn't very tight, but in these large field tournaments, with the DraftKings one tonight being $170,000, that is one of my go-to strategies, because if you're taking a lineup that has $50K of salary on average, I did analysis one tournament, you're going to split with on average 30 people, and I want $500K, man. I don't want $500K to buy by 30. How about you?
that if I was playing in the top contest, that would be me. I like to focus on those 500 person or less contests. I feel that they're a little bit better strategy for what I want to do. I have made, I can't remember if it was 55 or 65 lineups tonight. And I will be entering those. I really like the boosters format, Alex, because it's sort of the Ricky Bobby. It's not quite a winner take all, which I like on the main slate and short slates, and the morning slates for NFL. But I don't like those in Showdown. I don't want to split that prize if I'm lucky enough to win it. But when you get the 40x, whatever your entry fee is, it's a little more fun to throw a bunch of things at the wall and see what happens on that one. The other thing that I was laughing about is I was looking at my little DK notification here. I played just over $2,200 this weekend. I won $2,337.22. The other upside, so it's like, great, I guess 5% or whatever that works out to be. But I did turn $150 worth of tickets into cash, right? So there's a minor moral victory in that. But I was like, really? I played like you, every slate, did it all, did everything. And I mean, I guess I should be happy it was positive, but that was a lot of work for not a lot of return.
Well, EMac, clearly you got to turn off the feature that displays your entry fees for that particular day. Then you can just be happy with whatever winnings you end up with. But I think you make a good point in contest selection. Like, it's so important in DFS. And I mean, these large field tournaments, I know a lot of you guys are focusing on them because they're the biggest payouts, probably the biggest entertainment in the industry. and you can get the biggest ROI, but there is a lot of variance involved. So if you want to be able to grind a steady profit, focusing on smaller field tournaments and cash games is a very good strategy. It all depends, what kind of player you are. And I know EMac, you take pride in every year coming away with a good profit. So that's a great way to do it.
It gets tougher every year, Alex. It gets tougher every year, but I've been able to do it. So I guess, what is this, like year 9? I've lost 2 years. I've had 2 losing years, and one was basically break even. So it's hard to do, and I've had to adapt and change my game many times. But coming over here to Awesemo and learning the strategy of playing a lot of lineups in the smaller buy-ins to get spread out that variance, to play more contest types, and actually more sports here as well. During the sports downtime, I was doing CGSO and what's the other one? League of Legends. I didn't watch any. I tried to watch League of Legends once. I looked like a little pigpen from Charlie Brown. That's what the little scrum looked like. I couldn't tell who was on whose team, or it's not worth watching. But that was fun, doing that sorts of stuff. That's the great stuff we do have here at Awesemo. In the Slack channel with office hours is phenomenal as well. We'll talk more about us, but let's talk about the game. Jumping in here, the key things that we have, the inactives list. So notable inactives for the Ravens are Jimmy Smith. I did not realize he was injured, but he is out with a groin injury. So he's their shutdown corner per se. They've got Tremont Williams, Broderick Washington, and Tristan Colon Castillo and Justin, I don't even want to try his last name. So they're missing a few people on defense. On offense, Mark Andrews and Willie Snead were not activated off of the COVID list. J.K. Dobbins was, Patrick Ricard was, and of course Lamar Jackson was. So those are some questions that we're gonna get into here. On the Cowboys side, nothing really popped. A few guys on defense. We know a bunch of their offensive linemen are hurt, and then Ben DiNucci and Malik Turner aren't active tonight. So that's no big deal. No big deal there. So let's get into the COVID ramifications here. So we have an illness that impacts people across a broad spectrum of heavy case, of not so heavy case, of positive but really no symptoms. It's all over the place. We don't know what these particular players, the severity of what they were dealing with. These guys are young, they're world-class athletes, but we've still seen, Cam Newton comes to mind as someone that was impacted, Bam Adebayo in basketball as well, Russell Westbrook to a certain extent. So we don't know for sure exactly what's going on with them. Expect them to play most of the game. Baltimore still has an outside shot of making the playoffs. So I would think everybody's a full go if they're back. But hey, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a full go, we thought, and then he didn't play at all on Sunday night, and he had the flu. So we're guessing here. We don't know. Are you doing anything differently with Dobbins and with Jackson?
I'm not doing anything differently, but I do feel uncomfortable about the fact that I think it is worth discussing these COVID ramifications, because last week, Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, they were coming off the COVID list on Wednesday. I believe that was when their game was. And there was a rumor that they're going to fly out on game day because they weren't allowed to play they weren't allowed to be on the team flight the previous night. But they didn't end up doing that. So they have a full 6 days under their belts since then to recover from COVID. And that makes their situation a little bit different than Lamar Jackson, who I feel like today was the first day he would be eligible to come off the COVID list because of the quarantine period. So the guy I feel least comfortable, though, that being said, is J.K. Dobbins, because over the course of the season, his workload has fluctuated a lot. And with COVID being a factor, you could see maybe Gus Edwards play more than we're expecting tonight. But J.K. Dobbins before COVID was the highest usage back on the team. So that's a really difficult decision point. Do we roll with Dobbins, or are we going to maybe give Edwards more of a bump because if the other guys are a little bit slowed down by COVID, he could get the benefit? What do you make of this backfield in Baltimore?
Yeah, so I'm kind of on the same page. Currently, I do have J.K. Dobbins in my quote main lineup. I'm also leaving $2,000 on the table because once you put in Devin Duvernay and Des Bryant on DK, you're leaving salary on the table. So that felt a little weird. But in evaluating everything, I'm willing to still roll the dice with Dobbins, but that I've waffled back and forth on that, and I was just curious to hear your take. I feel that a little bit of extra time for them coming back is going to be a little more helpful. I'm terrified of what could happen with Lamar Jackson, but I think we have to consider this like an in-game injury or something. Perhaps something happens. We can't control if somebody turns an ankle or dislocates a finger or whatever it might be, tweaks a knee. You kind of have to look at it like that, in my opinion. As you said, don't feel great about it. Not playing. I'm doing about half my volume tonight just because I don't have a good read on it. But of course, I was only going to do just a little bit. And then as I'm sitting here listening to the previous show, I'm entering more and more lineups. So here we go. The siren song of DFS is strong. Let's see here. Oh, I'm going to drop into the chat here. The free product tonight that we are sharing in front of the paywall are the Awesemo single game rankings. So that link is in there. We also have a Twitter contest going on. That is a fun contest here. And let me get back to my show sheet so I can drop that link into chat. But you want to go look at the tweet that we have on Awesemo_COM. It's the Twitter handle. The answer to the question of who is going to throw the most passing yards tonight, Lamar Jackson or Andy Dalton. The winner of that question will be put into a random drawing, and then whoever wins the drawing will get a $250 valued NFL full season subscription. You can enact that now. You can wait till next year. You can do whatever you want, but that's a pretty good deal. So definitely check that out. That's over at our on Twitter, Awesemo_COM. All right, let's see. Where do we want to go to now? Let's talk about the visiting team here. So we've got Andy Dalton coming in. He's a competent quarterback. He's not great, obviously, as he's no longer a starter, but he's not bad. The downside is we've seen the Cowboys lose a couple offensive linemen, and he's not Dak Prescott. So the Ravens are the 10th best passing DVOA, but I did mention that Jimmy Smith will be out tonight. The Ravens have allowed just 208 yards passing and only 8 touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks, 2 rushing touchdowns as well. But that's over their last 7 games. 34.9 attempts per game. So the volume's been there. They're just a really, really good defense. Dalton has 4 passing touchdowns in his last 2 games, but that's about it. And it's a little scary when you also consider he's got 5 in his 3 starts where he's played at least or thrown at least 20 passes. He has 5 touchdowns against 4 interceptions. But he is a starting quarterback. He's healthy. He's got some amazing skill players around him. Andy Dalton. Here we are at the Red Rifle. What do you want to do with Andy Dalton?
Well, I think the correlations are important with Dalton because the nice thing about quarterbacks is when they do well, the other players on the team do benefit and vice versa. So it kind of helps a little bit getting the right 6 guys. If you do want Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb, Andy Dalton just fits in there real nice. He isn't particularly cheap, and that's why we're seeing he's not super high owned. But Andy Dalton has been very bad this year. I know he has a long history of being a league average quarterback, but he's so when we're comparing Dak's stats to Andy Dalton, Dak averaged about 8 yards of air yards per pass, but Andy Dalton is averaging about, let's see here, 6. So that's only 2 yards per pass shorter. He's not as accurate. And the team just hasn't been doing very well with him at quarterback. There were a couple of games where he got 75 yards was one of them. And another, he got 266, but that was over 54 passing attempts. So that was pretty miserable. Then you put him up against a team like Baltimore that they're a competent defense, nothing that's going to move the needle a ton, but their stats versus pass have been good. And you got to think, you can't feel very good about Andy Dalton with all this information about matchup and how he hasn't really performed this year. So if it was a main slate, no way I'd play him, but it's Showdown, so he's a quarterback. I guess that's good enough.
All right. Well, I after our little discussion, I've moved away from J.K. Dobbins in my main lineup, and I'm upgrading to Amari Cooper. So we'll talk about him in just a moment here. When we get to running backs here, we've seen Baltimore be good against the position. No surprise, they've allowed 3 running backs to get over 118 yards, but they've only allowed 4 rushing touchdowns. And then they had 2 receiving touchdowns. Both of those went to Rex Burkhead in that game. Ezekiel Elliott in his last 6 games has topped 51 rushing yards twice. He has 80 combined yards twice. Those are over 3 different games. But it's not very exciting. And then on the flip side, you've got Pollard, who in 3 games he has his in that same time frame, he has 58 combined yards 3 different times. So I didn't set a rule keeping those guys out separated in my lineup. Normally I would do that. I did for the Baltimore, where I'm only going to play one of their running backs, but I think both these guys can sort of get there. Yes, we're getting a huge discount on Elliott, but he is not the fantasy goldmine that he has been in the past. I'm not really doing cartwheels. And someone, I think I saw it on Twitter. I apologize. I don't remember who I want to attribute this to, but they were saying, hey, it looks like Elliott may not be getting the full workload. They may not run him into the ground since he just started out on this massive contract, because they're probably not going to make the playoffs, right? Even in the NFC East. So we're not going to see, I think he gets 20 touches tonight. I don't think he gets more than 25.
Yeah, and that would be an argument that maybe you'd play them together, Elliott and Pollard, because what we see with backup running backs a lot of the time is the more touches there are between running backs at the position, the more distributed it is. So if Ezekiel Elliott gets 20 touches and then the team runs 40 times, then we get to see Pollard with a huge game as well. So it's not really something I'm trying to target or avoid, but that is in the back of my mind. Of course, if Elliott gets pulled from the game, then Pollard is going to benefit a lot. So I'm not going to force that in. But I feel like Elliott is definitely a bounce back candidate here. He's gotten 3.9 fantasy points in his last game, and I think that will discourage a lot of people from picking him in a tough matchup. But over the last 4 weeks, he's gotten about 2/3 of the rushing attempts, while Pollard has gotten about 1/4. That's a lot of volume for Ezekiel Elliott. And then you throw in the fact that they have Dalton. There's a decent chance they're going to run the ball more. And since Dalton doesn't run the ball, that means Zeke will be running it. So I think that'll be a steady stream of points.
All right, $5 super chat here from Sanjeev Sharma. DK Cash, he's going with Lamar at captain. He also has Hollywood Brown, Cooper, Dalton, Tucker, and Duvernay. He says, do I need Dobbins or Zeke? The only tweak off of that I would consider making is I'm not that excited about Hollywood Brown. I just don't feel that Lamar is equipped to take full advantage of him. And there are, we've already seen Lamar with way less passing yards this year, way less rushing yards. It's just an entirely different offense. So I would probably go to Elliott at that point. Do you have strong feelings because this is a pivot point we're going to get a lot of questions on between Brown and between Elliott, because they're projecting very similar.
Yeah, that's a good one. Brown, I feel like he's on people's minds because in that last Showdown slate on Wednesday, he caught that long bomb at the very end, totally shook up the slate. And it was from the backup quarterback, McSorley or whatever.
Trace McSorley, baby.
Yeah, no one even got the points for that. So that was a little bit tilting, but I do feel like Marquise Brown does stand to be in a good spot here. Because Mark Andrews is out. He's the number 1 receiver, I think, or about even with Marquise Brown. Willie Snead is also out. I don't know if that really moves the needle much because Duvernay and Dez Bryant, I don't see much of a skill gap there. So with Andrews out, I do feel like Marquise Brown does stand to benefit, and he should get a few more targets than usual. But I agree. I mean, Baltimore is a run-first team, so the passing volume is pretty suspect, especially against a weaker offense like Dallas.
All right, 40 minutes until lock. Please do hit that like button. Hey, you can even subscribe to us as well. That would be helpful as we are on our drive for 50,000 by the end of the year. Again, we've got contests or shows for you coming up wall to wall. NBA preseason starts on Friday. We've got Thursday night football. Again, we have football all weekend. We've got the DFS betting show, the college football show, all sorts of goodness out there. So definitely you want to hit that subscribe button. Keeps our shows popping up on your homepage, because sometimes they don't. That's my favorite thing to do, is I've subscribed to the 3 channels that I like to watch the most. And then when I go to YouTube as one of my homepages, there's a little red dot if anybody's live. So that way I know quickly if I want to go see what's going on. You can also hit the notification bell, which will send you an alert if you would like to do that as well. Wide receivers here for the Cowboys. The Ravens have allowed just 7 receivers to top 100 yards. Here's the tough part. We've got 3 really good receivers with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. You throw in Dalton Schultz there. The hard part, Alex, Andy Dalton has not played favorites. These guys, with Andy Dalton under center, they almost all have equal targets. So that means Gallup's come up somewhat from what we had seen earlier in the season without Dalton. We've seen Amari Cooper go down a little bit. CeeDee Lamb stayed about the same, and now Dalton Schultz is entering the picture as well. I set a rule that I would not play more than 2 of those guys. My other rule was, if I'm playing Andy Dalton, I only have to play 1 of his pass catchers.
Nice. Yeah, I think how you pick these Dallas receivers is going to be a tricky decision. Amari Cooper had that big Thanksgiving Day game, so I feel like he's going to be on the front of everyone's mind when it comes to this receiving core. But then again, CeeDee Lamb had that catch a couple of weeks ago that was just on repeat, like over and over again on Twitter. So I feel like people see him as this ascending talent. So I think those guys, I mean, they're both really good talents. The quarterback plays mediocre. I don't really feel very strongly one way or the other with them. But certainly you got to expect that Dallas will have to throw the ball a lot to try to stay in this game, and they should be the main focal points. And then you got Gallup and Schultz, who are a little bit more dart throws, but certainly they're going to get the playing time. It's just, can they get the production? That's the question.
Yeah. Dalton Schultz, kind of interesting. He has at least 4 targets in all but 1 game. He has 26 in his last 4. Blake Bell has 11 on the season. So no Belldozer for us tonight. Cedric Wilson, the touchdowns are kind of interesting as well. So Schultz has 3, which makes him second on the team. Lamb's got 4, Cooper's got 3, Cedric Wilson has 2. I think he got both of them in the same game. And then you've got Gallup with 1. So this is just kind of, we're hoping for some variance on our side, but put another way, Dalton is averaging 1 touchdown every 30.4 pass attempts this season.
I think one point that we gotta say is that the Dalton to Dalton connection.
It's the Wheel of Fortune category, before and after. Alex,
yeah,
Andy Dalton Schultz. There you go.
That's a fun little combo. Maybe a little bit of additional correlation between the Daltons.
Right. A little bit of fun there. Let's see. Ravens have allowed multiple sacks in 5 of their last 6 games, 9 turnovers in their last 5. However, Cowboys, just 10 takeaways. That's the second lowest in the league. They're 22 sacks, bottom third of the league. They're cheap on DK. I don't think you need them. I would rather play Duvernay. I would rather play Des Bryant, et cetera. And at that point, you don't need the cash anymore. So let's talk about the Ravens here. For those of you that are just coming on in, we'll kind of recap a little bit. We have Lamar Jackson coming back off of the COVID-19 list, along with Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins. This is one of those where we hope they're healthy. We don't know for sure. I mentioned the Clyde Edwards-Helaire on Sunday Night Football, who was active. He had the flu, missed a couple of games, and then never set foot on the field. So I don't expect that to be an outcome. But as Alex pointed out, this is basically the first or second day back that Lamar Jackson really would have been eligible to come in. So he hasn't practiced. Last time he played was the 22nd of November. That said, I still think he's your number one play of the day. If we look at him by comparison, Alex, he's averaging 194.8 yards per game. There are only two quarterbacks averaging less, Cam Newton and Sam Darnold. Now, this is just 14 less yards than last year, so it's not that much of a difference. So what's changed? Well, he's throwing one less touchdown per game on average, because last year he had 35 or 36 passing touchdowns. He's also rushing for 27 fewer yards per game. Last year he was 8th in the league, and he's 27 yards off that. So none of this feels good, but we all have the same hand. We all have the same player pool. He projects us as the best play. We know he has the upside. I think he needs to be the number one guy. And no great shakes there, but weighing everything out, you're still like, looking at our alternates, I don't see anyone stepping up. What are we doing with Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I think Lamar, I mean, no one needs us to tell them to play Lamar Jackson. The COVID thing is a nice wrinkle, because like maybe that creates some sort of uncertainty with how he'll be used. Maybe he'll run the ball less. But I feel like Lamar Jackson's cardio after COVID is still better than like all of us watching this video. So I don't think he'll have a big problem there. But maybe a rushing attempt or two fewer, maybe a couple less planned rushing attempts. I mean, that's not a huge problem because he's going to scramble and stuff too. So I think he's about as safe as you're going to get, especially on this slate where Baltimore is a huge favorite. Their running backs are hard to call who's going to get the workload. And then the receivers, they don't have enough passing volume to really be standout plays. So by default, Lamar Jackson is just the alpha, and then everyone else is far behind.
All right, running backs. My rule is I'm only playing one of these guys. Mark, you've got Mark Ingram, you got J.K. Dobbins, you've got Gus Edwards, you've got Justice Hill, who I couldn't tell if he was active or not. He wasn't listed on the active or inactive list, so he may still be on the roster with a couple other people still on the COVID list. But as we saw just yesterday with Cam Sims, Logan Thomas, some random bills, anything can happen, Alex. Anything can happen. I don't feel great about any of these guys just because it's a committee. But if we think Lamar Jackson may be a little under the weather still, or if they get out to, they're 8.5-point favorites. If they're up to a 2-score lead, we could see him just turning around and handing the ball off to these guys the rest of the second half of the game. I'm not excited, but here we are.
Yeah, this is going to be, Baltimore running backs are probably the most frustrating unit to peg in main slates. Honestly, I don't have a ton of any of the guys because I do feel like as far as probability, they're a little bit tougher to peg. To put it in context, I have J.K. Dobbins with the best odds, about 39% to be one of the 6 highest scorers. That's pretty good, but you got Marquise Brown with a lot higher at a cheaper price point. This is all my top plays tool. The Ravens defense also may be a good pivot away from Dobbins. I know people hate playing the defense, and the logic I've seen on Twitter is a little bit it's something I want to poke a hole in, because people are like, oh, it's so random that they get a touchdown. That's true with any player on the slate. So I have Baltimore's defense projected for 0.23 touchdowns today. That is comparable to where I have CD Lamb with 0.25. So their touchdown equity as far as any player at a similar price point is pretty good. And then you throw in that they can get some extra points through maybe a shutout, maybe getting some sacks, interceptions, turnovers. And you got a good chance. I have them at about a 40% chance of being in the top lineup. So I know this is a rant from the question of running backs. So let me go back to Dobbins. I think he's a good play. He's in my mix, but not a priority tonight.
All right, we got a super chat in here, Alex. Hopefully you're still with us. Your connectivity looked like it was dodgy a little bit there. I'm going to drop that to you in Slack so you can see it. So basically, this is from Codifier. He is essentially asking, does he go Duvernay at captain and get all the good players, or does he go Lamar at captain and get nearly all of the good players still, in my opinion, tonight from that one? I would still lean with the Lamar Jackson one myself, but that's the core group of players. I like the first one, which actually is the lineup I'm using as my main lineup. So no wonder I'm a little partial to that one.
So I think Duvernay is a great play. I liked how Adam was mentioning him a lot on the previous show. I think he really stands out on this slate because he hasn't really produced much this year so far, but we know that's been because mostly of playing time. And Willie Snead is out right now. So in the last game, Duvernay ran routes on 88% of plays, and that is far higher than his average on the season, which is 40%. So that puts him firmly in playable territory. That being said, I prefer him at the flex. The reason why is because if you pick Duvernay at captain, you just have too much salary left, and you're going to be funneled into a very specific lineup build with all the same players as everyone else. If you have Lamar at captain, there's a much better chance that you can be able to write 5 guys and still have a unique lineup, in my opinion.
All right. That was a good way of kind of going through the Baltimore receivers. I think that hits everything. Oh, Des Bryant. So I wanted to point him out as, former Dallas Cowboy. He's been out of the league since 2017. This will be his third game back. I believe he's more of a possession guy at this point, but it helps with no Mark Andrews and no Willie Snead. And he is just $1,000 on DraftKings. He's $7,000 on FanDuel. I don't think you have to go there. The savings isn't quite as dramatic, and you really need him to get a touch. On FanDuel, you just need to capture the touchdowns. And I don't really see him with a lot of touchdown upside. At $1,000 on DraftKings, lets you get everybody else that you want. And the full PPR, I mean, we could see him go, 4 for 40 or something like that. Think of him like the tight end, the Larry Fitzgerald type numbers. That's what we're looking at with Des Bryant. But, revenge. So we have that going for us. Does he start out with 2 or 3 points because it's a former team? I can't remember the
Yeah, Des Bryant's intriguing. I mean, he got signed to the active roster a couple of weeks ago. And then last week, his playing time went up from 58% of snaps to 76% on dropbacks. He's gotten 7 targets over basically 1.5 games. So I think you can expect a pretty decent role here with Willie Snead still out. And we're not expecting a top talent guy. He's 1K. So the fact that his name is Des Bryant and not some random guy we've never heard of, doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, we know what to expect. Just kind of a guy that maybe will get some PPR points, maybe look into a touchdown. And because Baltimore's tight end situation is pretty weak right now, maybe he's that big target that they need.
Are you ready for a big pivot, Alex? Now we have 25 minutes until kickoff. Des Bryant has been ruled out. He has a positive COVID test.
Really?
It is on Twitter. I'm looking for confirmed sources. I'm not seeing a specific one, but this just broke literally now. So let's try to get.
Oh yeah, you're right. He did test positive. So I'm glad we're on the stream to break this down because I think we can take advantage of this.
Yes.
What I would do, I'm not sure what Miles Boykin's salary is, but he does
600. It doesn't matter anymore. Salaries don't matter.
So my best recommendation, if you're not going to build your lineup from scratch here, is just to do a swap from Des Bryant to Miles Boykin, because I feel like with the playing time, okay, so what they got on their the roster here.
Luke Wilson's the only tight end. He has 2 targets in, I think, 2 games that he's been with the team.
This also makes me feel even more confident about Duvernay's playing time. Maybe, so I think Luke Wilson and Eric Tomlinson may pick up some extra routes here, just because they only do have 3 wide receivers that have played it all this year that are active today. So that makes me really confident those 3 wide receivers are going to have good roles today. And then maybe Luke Wilson, he ran routes on 80% of dropbacks last week, so I think we'll see more of that, and he stands out as someone that will get a lot of volume today.
All right, I am going through. Here's how I am approaching it, because the one time I actually have everything built and uploaded, and I'm not going to be scrambling.
Yeah, this is unprecedented, I feel like.
Yeah. So yes, for me actually being on the ball here, but I am just taking and saying the global swap, and I'm going down to, let's see, Des. I'm putting in Duvernay on any of the lineups he wasn't already in, and then I'm going to go with Boykin on the others from that one. So that's just an easier way to do it if you're playing along at home here.
All right, I updated the projections. If you guys are using those, I'm working on the top Showdown plays update here, so make sure to get the latest data.
All right. Well, Alex is doing that. I'm going to talk a little bit about our sponsor, No House Advantage. It is exactly that. There is no house advantage. It's prop betting with the fantasy twist. So we're not actually going against the house. We're playing against other gamers. It's the same formats that we're used to seeing: head-to-heads, 50-50s, GPPs, etc. What you do is you choose from a set of questions that they have, which are the prop bets. So they will have somewhere between 25 and 40 questions for whatever sport, slate, or games that are playing that day. And it's just a new way to look at things, which I can't play on there in Virginia because for different reasons. So in Virginia, you have to pay $50,000 a one-time licensing fee, right, to the state to pay for the auditing services. But if they did, I could actually do prop betting. So this is something that is coming in under the guise of fantasy sports, but it's prop wagering. And if you cannot get that in your state because your state does not allow betting, this is a way to kind of dip your toe in the water. The other thing that's very, very helpful is we have free projections courtesy of Alex for that's our ownership. We have free projections here for No House Advantage. So I'm going to drop those into the chat here so you guys can kind of see easier to explain when you're looking at that. So we see the different questions here. For example, we have Michael Gallup with 47.5 receiving yards. So you would say, do you want to go with the over or the under? Well, we have projected him for 31.8 yards. He has a median projected outcome of 30.3 yards. So it is much better, 36% chance advantage in your favor if you take the under. So what you do is you select the questions that you want to have, creating your own lineup, assign them your confidence points, and then how the results play out are how the points you score. Those points go against everybody else. And hey, it's fantasy sports again. Question here. When you run your projected median, how many times do you run the simulation?
Oh, that's a good question.
Since we have you here, I was just guessing. I'm assuming it's some sort of Monte Carlo simulation setup, but 10,000
Yeah,
times?
for the top Showdown plays, I think it's something like 1,000 because that gives you that 2 decimal point accuracy. So, or one decimal point. So, actually, no, I think it's more than that. It's like weird because it's in Excel, so I'm doing it by like the number of
something to do with like potential
columns,
combinations.
but yeah, it's a lot of times.
All right. Excellent. Just wanted to throw that out there. But if you guys have not yet signed up, you can use the promo code Awesemo when you make your first deposit. They will match you up to $20. Refer a friend, get another $5 when they make their first deposit. Play against your friends, not the house, no house advantage. All right. Are you caught up with everything that you needed to do there?
Yep. Hopefully, I'll also update the ownership here because I know you guys.
That'll tweak a little bit. Yeah. So this is
probably looking for that, but I can do that while we're breaking down the game.
All right. Let me come back here. So sort of recapping all of this, Des Bryant out, Devin Duvernay elevated even more in our eyes. This, in my opinion, I guess brings Marquise Brown back into play a little more than I initially had him. He may see an extra target or two. And then, this also has Luke Wilson potentially seeing a couple targets. Will he actually catch them? I do not know, but it also, I didn't see, Rinpack was sent me a message and asking me if James Proche II, is he active? We'll have to look and see. He's a rookie wide receiver guy that's, I think, played a couple games for them.
That's a good question.
And there we go. So we'll run a search on that for Twitter and see what's going on. But that's sort of put everything on its head. But fortunately, we have time. We still have 20 minutes before kickoff. We'll have some time to take some questions here. I'm looking at let me drop this here's the link to my article, break down all of our primetime games by team, by position, and then I rank the full player pool, sort of do my top 10, do what I just call kind of the secondary plays, and then like the absolute dart throws. Without Des Bryant, who I had ranked 8th, I don't think I would really change much. I'd probably elevate Duvernay up to number 8, but I would keep pretty much everything else the same because there's still a lot of guys splitting a lot of time, a lot of work share here, and no real dominating workload. But you guys can see, 2,000 words for free on the articles here, breaking down the game. Kyle always does an article as well. He takes a slightly different approach, talking about different leverage and different ways you can use some of our tools or angles that you can use into the large field tournaments. So 2 different ways of looking at stuff. Those are both free articles, so feel free to check those out. Oh, back to no house advantage. Did you have a favorite prop tonight? And we're not counting Des Bryant under whatever his yardage was. Will they count that as that won't be a question, right? It's invalidated if the players don't play, is it?
I believe so, yeah. So the overs on interceptions are always good. Right now they have Andy Dalton's interception prop at 1.5 though, so I think there's a pretty good chance he doesn't throw 2 interceptions. I'll take under on that. And then we got Marquise Brown at 48.5. I would take the over because I feel like that's kind of his baseline, and he'll get a bump with no Mark Andrews. So I think he stands to have a bigger game than that.
Right. Let's see here. I think it is going to hit most of the main analysis. Chat, premium, and YouTube chat, if you have any questions, put those in. We'll have a little bit of time to take care of business with regards to that. I'm just going to look and see if there's any other breaking news here on Twitter. So let's put up a Raven search and we'll look at that. All right, let's see here. Can you let us know when the top stack tool has been updated?
Yes, it will be in, by the time you hear this, it's updated.
All right. See, this is the best part. People were like, "Oh yeah, these are really Alex's tools." Wink, nod. Yeah, he just put his name on. No, he's actually updating them right now. So here we go. This is behind the scenes. When I first started, I because we write some of our articles way early, and I was like, "Oh, this isn't right or this isn't right," and whatever. And I was like, "What do I just put that into support or whatever?" Like, no, send a message to Alex. I'm like, "Wait, really?" He's like, "Yeah, it's his model." And he puts them all out. It's like, wow, okay, this is the real deal here. So thank you for doing that. Look at that, live before a show and putting content ahead of his own lineups.
For sure. I mean, if you thought I was involved with this site because of my pretty face,
All right, let's see.
Like, no, I'm not the best, the analyst and stuff. I got the models.
All right, so yes, people are having some fun here. Yes, let's see. Dalton throwing 5 touchdowns tonight. Probably not. Duvernay or Zeke is one that keeps coming up here. I mean, I think the answer is Zeke, but I have more Duvernay now, and I'm comfortable with that. I don't know what to do.
Well, they're not even remotely in the same, like, sorry, I'm lagging a little bit.
But on
remotely...
DK though, the pricing doesn't really matter, right? So I think it's a better question of just looking at the raw volume. Look at me telling you how to play fantasy sports.
I'm a little bit confused by this question because, like, I can't think of a situation where, like, the last man in is either Zeke or Duvernay. I mean, I'd pick Zeke unless it was a Millie Maker or something. So, but I do have more Duvernay than Zeke is close. I think they're both top plays today.
All right, I'm gonna look at. Yeah, I'm gonna end up now with more Marquise Brown at 43% across my lineups. Duvernay, I'm at 70. Elliott, I'm at 58. Dalton, 64. Lamar Jackson, 84. Cooper, 59. So those are my main guys. I had 25% of the Ravens defense. Alex, it's a little bit crazy.
I mean, that's pretty much on par of the field, so I don't think you need to worry about that.
All right, I'm looking across my lineups here. 8,000, 11,000. I've got 4 with $11,000 left on the table. When you put Duvernay in at captain, you're going to have about $10,000 left over. So, leaving the salary on the table will help create more unique lineup builds in this situation here. Just think of it as if they're a more expensive player, right? Because Duvernay with everybody out, he should probably be like a $5,000 or $6,000 receiver on DK. Just don't spend that money elsewhere. What is my cash lineup tonight? I'm only doing a handful of cash games. I'm not going to post head-to-heads, but I'll tell you guys. I'm not as excited by this slate. I did pretty well last night in them, but I'll post those again the next show. I went with Jackson, Elliott, Dalton, Cooper, Duvernay, and now I've got Boykin in there. So thank you for pointing that out because that was a global swap. So I have 2,000 left. I'm going to stick with Boykin. I could go with Luke Wilson, but Boykin's been with the team longer. I just would feel a little more comfortable with him, even though he hasn't done a lot. I'm wearing my Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl shirt. I think Luke Wilson was on that Super Bowl team. The Patriots loss. Too soon, Alex. Still too soon. All right. Would you consider playing Dobbins and Edwards?
I think so, yeah. I think if you do play both, like maybe you leave. So you're hoping Baltimore just dominates the game running the ball, basically, because they don't contribute a ton receiving. So because of that, maybe I would be under on Marquise Brown and Duvernay in those lineups. So I'd probably go with something like Edwards, Dobbins, the Ravens defense, and Justin Tucker, and then maybe fill out the rest from there.
All right, Paulie L wins the chat. He says, "I didn't know Ship My Modem was doing tonight's show." Alex, they're not happy with your internet. So that's an old school blast from the past with Ship My Modem on that one. So putting that one out there. Let's see. Is it better to play a Ravens running back or Justin Tucker on FanDuel?
I like Justin Tucker a lot more than the running backs, honestly. Like, kickers get a bad name because like they're not usually the highest scores, but what you're looking for out of the flex is you need about 10 points, and the chance that kicker gets to that is pretty good. I have Tucker projected for 9 points, so you really only need maybe an extra field goal or extra. I mean, I like maybe a few extra, like 40 yards instead of 30 yards. So I think Tucker is one of the best plays on the slate. The kickers, every single Showdown slate are under-owned. That's definitely one of my main strategies.
All right, 10 minutes until lock. Yes, Des Bryant has been ruled out with COVID, so you will want to adjust lineups. If you are just tuning in, hit that like button as well, and then go over to Awesemo_COM. Check out the pinned tweet. I'll drop the link to it in chat here in just a moment, but we have a free giveaway tonight. All you got to do is answer one simple question. Who is going to throw more passing yards tonight, Andy Dalton, or is it going to be Lamar Jackson? That's a reasonable one, I guess, that both could be the same. I think everybody's going to lean towards Lamar Jackson, but but you could see Michael Gallup streaking down the field, CeeDee Lamb, something like that. You could see Marquise Brown. We'll see what happens, but if you get the question right, you will then be put into a drawing for 1 free year of Awesemo Premium content. Pardon me, Awesemo Premium NFL content. All right, Alex. I asked this question when I'm on the show with Kyle. Is there anybody that terrifies you tonight that you have gone underweight on or sorry, I'm getting it sounds like okay, I'm gonna check that one out. Is there anybody that you're going underweight on that you're worried that just could blow up on you? My guess would be we're picking the wrong Cowboy receiver or the wrong Baltimore running back, but there's a lot of potential landmines out there.
Yeah, so I just want to address this tweet. So all other Ravens players tested negative for COVID. So the game is still on, but no Des Bryant. So if you have Des Bryant, make sure to swap him out. As far as things that could go wrong, I think the one that I'm scared about is the Cowboys defense, because I feel like they're not a very good play tonight. And a lot of my lineups have like 4 or 5 Ravens players. So obviously I'm not putting Cowboys defense. But if they do get a touchdown, I feel like I'm going to be totally screwed. So I do feel kind of nervous about that.
All right. If you were building one lineup and were planting your flag, I guess that question is going to be Lamar Jackson. Is he your captain / MVP? Is he flex or is he off the lineup?
Wait, say that again.
Lamar Jackson is, if you were making one lineup and you want to plant your flag, is he in the captain spot? Is he in the flex spot, or is he not on your roster?
I would put him at captain because one of my strategies is leaving money on the table, and I feel like you need to hit the highest scoring player to like pull that off at captain. So I don't feel as good about leaving money on the table if I put Ezekiel Elliott or Amari Cooper at captain. But Lamar, I think that just gives you a better chance, and there's a good amount of mid-range players that fit that build. So that would be my strategy.
All right, let's see. Boykin ? Yeah, he comes into the mix. Boykin or Wilson? I have gone with Boykin myself. And to get just kind of fleshing that one out, he's been with the team a couple years now. Luke Wilson, journeyman, been with Seattle a couple different times, got his one contract with Detroit, I think, and his big contract was $2.5 million. And then he's been cut, I think, twice already this season by other teams. I think he was in Carolina at one point. But so he is definitely the definition of journeyman, but he's also the guy you don't want to meet in a dark alley. If you go to his DK player page, he's kind of scary looking. I'm jealous of the hair, but the maniac look, I guess, is what we call that one. Let's see here. Boykin hasn't run a route
Baltimore.
in 3 weeks. Yeah, this is not a fun time. They've run out of players though, with no Willie Snead and no Mark Andrews. So.
Well, the thing is, you got to realize that the Baltimore wide receivers are more talented than their stats indicate, because Baltimore runs the ball so much. Boykin at one point was a decent prospect. He never really got there, but hey, maybe he's getting his chance tonight. So I think he's worth taking some shots on.
Tucker or Gallup?
Tucker is one of my top plays of the night. I just feel like the scoring from kicker is a lot more reliable than a wide receiver where you're hoping to get a touchdown, because the chance of that is pretty low. So I have Tucker as a much better play than Gal.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot Boykin was at Notre Dame. Yeah, not exactly flashy college stats, but nonetheless, he was a 4-year player there. So
Nice.
We'll see. Can you play both kickers on FanDuel tonight? I think you can.
Yes, I have a lot of lineups with both kickers. I don't feel great about Zerline, but he's Greg the Leg. I mean, he's one of the top scorers in the NFL probably, so it's hard to not pick him.
All right, I now have my new terrifying player. It's not having enough Justin Tucker. I only have 25%, so we'll see. Let's see. Playing the 2-game slate. I only made 2 lineups for the Tuesday to Thursday slate. FanDuel did have quite a bit of overlay in some of their tournaments for the Monday through Thursday games. So I played a few there, but locked in Gibson. So my night was kind of, or my week's kind of over already on that one. Let's see. Boykin will run less routes than we'll have to see. Dobbins, CeeDee Lamb, or Marquise Brown on FanDuel?
Dobbins, CeeDee Lamb, or Marquise Brown. I think Brown is probably the best player. When you factor in the quarterback, CeeDee Lamb is good talent, but I'm not convinced he's in a good spot with Dalton. So the only X factor is the ownership, which Dobbins, let me see. Dobbins is 30%. Marquise Brown's 37%. So actually, Marquise Brown isn't that high owned. So I'd go with him.
All right. I just realized. Oh, good. Devin Duvernay right there. That I did not swap out my last night lineups for Mr. Des Bryant. So I'm going to do that now. Alex, if you had somehow forgotten any live lineups that you have. You may want to change those.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Those multi-day slates, I forgot about that. Oh, and the Bachelor slate just locked in case any of you guys were playing that.
Oh, shoot. I was going to ask, well, now that it's locked, what was your lineup tonight?
A big pivot. Yeah, I'm going to be watching that. My girlfriend, she's thinking we're watching The Bachelor or Bachelor tonight. Man, I'm thinking NFL.
All right, let me just see here. Did I play Des on FanDuel? I did not. Okay, good. All right, so we are 3 minutes away from a lock. Reminder, Des Bryant is out. Make sure that you adjust your lineups accordingly, especially if you have any that are going on at the moment. This is a good little practice for us getting ready for NBA. Speaking of which, NBA preseason starts on Friday. We, of course, have Thursday night football. We've got Christmas NBA. That slate is going to be wild. And then the regular NBA season is actually starting with a pair of 2-game slates on the 22nd and 23rd. So we're right around the corner from having some fun here. We got some NBA best ball content that is on the main page. That's there from Greg Ehrenberg. If you guys are into that for basketball, there's a little bit of edge in those. The hard part, of course, will be what are we doing with sicknesses, et cetera. The NBA is taking a different approach this year. They have only released half of their schedule thus far because they're not sure what they're going to have to do with makeup games and adjusting things accordingly. So they wanted to leave themselves some flexibility. Yes, EMac and Alex Des is out. Thank you. You have 2 minutes to change this, 1 minute from when you hear my voice. A daddy likes after this show, that tradition traveled along with one Fast Eddie Fair. So no daddy likes on that one. Let's see. I should go do a show over there with Eddie so we can have worked at 5 different fantasy companies together. So just to keep, I guess it would be 4, just to keep our streak alive. It's be the first year I haven't done basketball.
Well, I do miss hearing who he likes.
Yeah, that's always kind of fun. Always kind of fun. All right. With that, we are up to lock. Feels like the NBA just got done a couple months ago because it did. Let's see. Fading Elliott. That's it. I think it's time for some pizza. Did you eat dinner yet, Alex?
No, pizza sounds good, man. Where are we ordering from?
Oh, it's not delivery. It's DiGiorno tonight. So I had delivery last night, a little Mediterranean grill plate with shish kebab and some tzatziki sauce. So that was pretty good. But we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Alex. What is your Twitter handle, Alex? It's Awesemo DFS. All right. And then, of course, it is Awesemo_COM for the main company handle. We have all of the different Awesemo handles out there for the different sports. You can check those out. Plus, the podcast network. Got to mention that. We have everything but our Live Before Lock goes out on the Awesemo Podcast Network. If you can find a podcast network, we are on it. With that, gamers, good luck.